top 10% of practice owners nationwide valued their existing patients more than most people did. I think most practice owners are so excited about getting that next new patient, that next new patient, and next new patient, when in fact the gold in the cart are the existing people already knowing and using your services. My clinic had 12 other clinics within 2 miles. And I remember feeling so eternally grateful and blessed, honestly, that, Bess Smith was sitting on the plinth letting me evaluate her when she had 12 other clinics she could have been at. I think the top 10% understood that, and they invested in that relationship.
I'm Garrett Salpeter, and I believe that the most powerful and transformative way to help people recover from pain and injury, heal from trauma, and reach their highest levels of fitness and performance is to focus on the nervous system. In this podcast, we'll share knowledge from the frontiers of neuroscience and inspirational stories of how applying that knowledge has empowered people from all walks of life to heal, adapt, and grow. Hello, NeuFit Nation. Welcome back to the Undercurrent podcast. We have Brian Gallagher joining again for the second time. He last appeared in episode 57, and I highly encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. We talked about marketing, operations, compliance, and billing. We talked about strategy. We talked about culture and how it influences hiring and retention of top people. So there was covered a lot of really good ground in that episode. Definitely encourage you to go back. And we have him back on to share both more on some of those topics, because there's many areas of that discussion that warrant a deeper dive, and also to hear some of his more recent insights into healthcare. And I say healthcare intentionally because even though he's best known for his work in physical therapy, he also works with occupational therapy, speech, chiropractic, etc. And his podcast is called The Secrets of the Top 10%. And that's what he does. He coaches and empowers practice owners to be at the elite level of their respective field. So I've known Brian for a long time. He walks the walk. He's the real deal. So excited to have him back on. And Brian, welcome. And for those who have not heard episode 57, can you please share just a brief background of yourself and what Meg Business is doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. Garrett, thank you for having me on. I'm very grateful. It's really, time is precious these days. And anytime we can come together and have a good discussion that potentially could help one listener make a change in their life, both personally and professionally for the better, it's a good day for me. So for those of you who haven't met me before or heard or seen me at any of the conferences or our podcast or YouTube channel, yeah, Garrett's right. It's Physical Therapy Private Practice, Secrets of the Top 10%. And the way I came up with that title was when my practice won Practice of the Year in 2011 out of the 36,000 practices in the nation. I owe all the credit to my staff. They're just the ones that executed such an excellent performance in the 6 clinics that we had. I didn't know, but the next 5 years after that, I was able to be on the judging panel of who would win Practice of the Year for the next upcoming year. And so, Garrett, they would whittle it down to the top 10, and then you would get the top 10, and then you would evaluate them and submit who's your first, who's your second, who's your third. And out of the 10 evaluators, whoever won the most firsts won, and then runner up and so on. So when it was over, I'm not sure if I was supposed to do this or not, but I highlighted all the successful actions that the top 10% of practice owners already figured out. And lo and behold, when you stack them up next to each other, there was this amazing level of continuity between all of the top 10% submittals. There were just some real consistent things that they had figured out and they had applied that other people in many ways never even heard of or never even knew about. So that's when I created the podcast saying, everybody needs to know this stuff. Everybody needs to hear these successful actions. And it's just basically PTs helping PTs. And so that's my approach every day. So being a physical therapist of 33 years, having had Practice of the Year in 2011, which was like a lifetime ago, Meg Business Management is committed to not only providing services that is such a nightmare and a headache for so many owners, billing, collections, credentialing, front desk, both remote and virtual. We can do both of those. Insurance verifications, authorizations, and data migration. That's our services. But for me personally, I like to embrace as many owners as possible and be their business coach, and then meet with them every single week and help them achieve their goals. So that's my quick little synopsis. And again, very grateful for the time we're going to be able to converse here about how we could possibly help as many people as we can.
I love that experience that you share in that perspective of getting to look at the finalists for practice of the year and seeing literally what the best performers are doing. So what jumps out or jumped out at you as those successful actions that just kept bubbling up as being consistent among the finalists and the winners year over year?
The one thing that comes to mind when you ask, just as a knee-jerk response, I think the top 10% of patients, top 10% of practice owners nationwide valued their existing patients more than most people did. I think most practice owners are so excited about getting that next new patient, that next new patient, and next new patient, when in fact the gold in the cart are the existing people already knowing and using your services, right? You've already won that person over. They've already, I mean, my clinic had 12 other clinics within 2 miles, so within 2 miles of my front door was 12 other clinics. And I remember feeling so eternally grateful and blessed, honestly, that, Bess Smith was sitting on the plinth letting me evaluate her when she had 12 other clinics she could have been at. And so I think the top 10% understood that, and they invested in that relationship with that patient, whether it be through Christmas cards, birthday cards, follow up, hey, how you doing? What charity events do you go to? Can we participate in those? What can we do to give back to the community in which you live in? Would you like it if I accompanied you to your next doctor visit? I would love to follow, be in the office with you and your doctor, and we could talk about your condition. And patients were just blown away. You mean you're going to take time out of your day and go to my doctor visit with me? Yeah, of course we can do that. And just things of that nature, or the top 10% understood how important it was for customer service. Here I call it TPS, tip for professional success. So if you guys all listening have a pen and paper or your iPhone, pull up your notepad. Here's one of the executive successful actions that I learned from that drill, and that I've been coaching on now for going on 15 years. What if your front desk person came in every morning on Monday morning, every week, Monday morning, and looked at all the evals that were currently in the books from Wednesday to Friday? And they looked at all the open slots you had available from Monday to Wednesday. And it was just part of your, top 10% best practices that your front desk, before they got busy and anything else, they would simply call out to all the evals Wednesday through Friday and move them up in the schedule. And it was like, hi, Mr. Smith, I'm just giving you a call as a courtesy. I know you have your eval scheduled for Thursday at 2, but I currently have an appointment Tuesday at 2. If that works for you, I just wanted to offer it to you before I called someone else. And always getting seen sooner rather than later is always in the best interest of resolving your condition. So please just give me a call back and let me know if you'd like to take that appointment. Or now, please just click my website and grab that appointment. It's currently open. So you can do anything like that. But boy, the time that you would take out of your day to do that for a patient is remembered. And I just think that's just an example.
Yeah, I love that, and it really comes down to the way that you treat people, generally in business and relationships with colleagues, personal relationships and customer relationships. That's great. Being thoughtful, going the extra mile. And, one of the things I would like to talk with you, when this episode comes out, it's going to be early 2026. And I want to hear your thoughts on sort of the pulse of the industry and what some of the biggest pain points and challenges and opportunities are. And also, I think it's interesting to look at what you just said about valuing existing patients, more than other practices do, providing that extra level of care, and how that differentiated many of these top practices. That's something that when you're seeing this in 2010, 2011, 2013, 12, 13, that's timeless. That's one of these fundamental principles that transcends time. That's always the right thing to do, always going to be valuable. So I like that. And I don't know, I guess before we move on, are there any other, from that particular experience, any other qualities or successful actions from those practices that bubble up? Because I think that's such a fascinating lens to really look at that selection, that group of those highest achieving clinics. So is there anything else from that before I move on from the topic?
Yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit there when you said, we're looking at what we can do to optimize the effectiveness of the physical therapy industry. You use the word industry. And I feel if we're going to look at an industry, any industry, I think we start by looking at the profession that makes up the industry. So this industry is the physical therapy industry, which you're referring to. So let's look at what's the core significance of being a physical therapist? Like, what's the core element of being a physical therapist, right? And I think when you really boil it down to its core, you have to ask yourself then, what were the motivating factors that made us want to become physical therapists to begin with? Because that's really the core, right? Like, it's the core beingness of me as an individual. I mean, yes, I spent 5-6 years in school to get my degree and learn all that I needed to learn to get out there and perform to the level that every physical therapist wants to. But for what reason? Like, for what point of accomplishment? Like, for what driving force? What was the core element that makes up a physical therapist? Well, the two main reasons why we even took the time, energy, and effort and spend currently come out of school with $150,000 in debt. The whole reason why I think where it's worth doing is because number one reason why we want to be a physical therapist is I want to help as many people in my community as I humanly can achieve the highest level of optimum health. And I'll just sidebar, that's when the newbie came into my life, like, 7 years ago. It was a game changer in the industry. I mean, literally a game changer, at least for me and my clients. I mean, here's something that you can do that you're going to get results in 3 to 5 sessions in ways that I never experienced before. Radiculopathies going, sciatica going away, mobility improving. I mean, just such a moment shift there, a momentum shift. And then the second reason for going to physical therapy school and being on point as a professional is I want to have the highest degree of skills possible to have the greatest impact with each and every engagement. And again, that's why I kind of segued the newbie into it, because it really does and has over these years helped facilitate a higher level of care being delivered. And so I'm very proud to have been connected with you years and years ago when it wasn't even known and see the impact it's had on our public. But when you ask me that question, I think an industry is a reflection of the core principles of the professionals within it. So let's not lose sight of it. I love being a physical therapist in private practice because I don't meet many physical therapists who are owners in private practice who are uber greedy, super duper greedy. It's all about, making the money and, at all costs and cut the corner shape. That's just not the culture of, that's just not who we are as beings. So I find this to be an amazing profession. If we stay true to our core values of trying to increase as many people in our community as possible to achieve a level of optimum health, and we try to push ourselves to be the best clinicians to have the greatest impact with each and every engagement, I think that's what differentiates us from everybody else. If we never lose sight of that, I think we'll never, ever be surpassed by any other profession. And I'll say to you, as I wrap up on that, when I was making the point about cluster booking and what really differentiates the best practices from the rest, it's understanding that over 60 to 65% of all the patients you'll ever treat should be connected to you through return business. Either a patient who's been here before, a friend, family member, coworker, peer, or a referral source is connected to your good experience. So literally all you have to do is just do good therapy with each and every patient. And then 60% plus of all your evals are going to come from that. They're literally just wearing your jersey. And I think tying back to your first question, best clinics nationwide already know that. They just function like that, just routinely from that perspective.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I like one of the things that you said there was, connecting with the core values and the reason for joining this profession in the first place. I think always staying in touch with our core values and our why is very important. And it reminded me a little bit when you said, most practice owners are not greedy. They're identify as physical therapists first because they are so in touch with those values and desire to help people. It sort of reminds me of my own personal journey. I think there's a lot of people in business who are business people who find an opportunity, and I know I just speaking for myself, I was very interested in this work and developing technology and helping people, and then had to learn business as an avenue to get this forward, rather than sort of the opposite. So I think a lot of people listening, resonate with that, and that's sort of what you're describing as well. And that, of course, speaks to the value. Like for me, I had to, I having not gone to business school or had experience running or leading or being in other businesses, really, had to learn a lot of that. And so that's where a lot of the value of coaching comes in. That's where being able to listen to conversations like this comes in too. And so I think it's wonderful for the people who do get to experience your coaching services. I know you're a very trusted and effective and value adding resource there. And also I'm curious to hear, especially for the practice owners now going into 2026 and the environment that we're in, what do you think are the biggest pain points, biggest challenges, biggest opportunities in the physical therapy industry?
Wow, that's a great question. That's a really great question. If you turn on the news, you're going to hear all this doom and gloom, AI, robotics, automation, all this stuff. But in the real world, I should say, not in the reality, in the real world of our profession and our area of expertise, I personally feel it could not be a better time. I mean, we do about 40 startups a year. We look to get all of our startups viable and break even within 3 to 6 months. And we want everyone to make it their 3rd year anniversary profitable and growing, 85% of all new businesses fail in the first, I think it's 3 years, and 85% of the remaining fail in the first 5 years. So we really have proven ourselves from 2006 to now to buck that system. I don't think we've ever had a startup practice who's done full Meg Academy with us, full coaching, and applied what we've taught. We've never had a startup fail. I like to give, again, another tip for professional success. It's because we have a 27-step process on how to succeed in opening your private practice, how to incorporate, how to run a pro forma, how to build a business strat plan, how to build your marketing plan. We literally want you to be at 40, 45, 50 visits a week within 90 days of opening your doors, because we know about 45 visits a week is break even, and everything after that, you're pulling in the profit. The thing is with that, it's the first 100 patients you see. We call it the magic 100. It's how you treat and care for that first 100 that's going to drive the next 1,000. And so I really do want to send that message to all of you that being successful in private practice today is easier now than it's ever been. Because back in the day, Garrett, you might remember when you've been involved in businesses for some time, we tend to be this DIYer. I know I was, back in, 1999, 2000, I opened my first clinic, and then I opened my second clinic in 2003. Man, I'm slinging Cat 5 cables in the wall. I'm putting in Ethernet jacks. I'm painting. I'm hanging stuff. I'm laying carpet. I'm doing stuff. I'm taking, I'm doing my own billing. I was doing HIPAA 1500 forms on paper. I'm doing it by paper. I'm posting payments with a ruler. I mean, it was this thing like, well, if I do it, I don't have to pay somebody else to do it. That is just wrong. Who's that good financial guru for people's personal career? Is it Dave Ramsey? Is that it? Is it?
Oh yeah, Dave Ramsey. Yeah, he's got hours of content a day for decades.
Yeah, he's got so much, and everything I hear him say and how you want to manage your finances at home is spot on. It's perfect. But I wouldn't listen to a bit of that advice on how to run my business. It's completely the opposite. You need to use money to make money. You can't pay cash on the dollar. You got to leverage yourself and move in and then grow from there, all within reason, of course. But you got to have a financial plan. And it's so funny. I'm constantly unwinding individuals' home mindset to more of a running a business mindset. You've got to come to work being, I'm a CEO, owner of this practice. Oh, and I happen to be a PT. You can't come in being, I'm a PT and I happen to be an owner. So it's quite the opposite. And the more I can get that mindset in, the more successful owners have been and become. And it's so much easier. We don't want stress in our lives. Owners today, they don't even want to look at the admin. Brian, just run my front desk. Brian, just get me paid. Do my billing, do my collections. And we're a much bigger company now than we've ever been. So we're really excited about that for 2026. And doing verifications. They're like, I didn't go to school for that. And I'm like, it's about time. You never did your own accounting. You never did your own legal work. Why are you doing your admin work? It's been such a successful action for us right now. I'm really excited to see what it's going to bring, where it's going to bring us next year.
So that is a big one in terms of being able to outsource investing. I want to back up a second before we dive into that. You talked about this doom and gloom mindset around, AI, and people are concerned about, jobs are going to go away. Sometimes business owners are excited because they think they can have, AI do jobs and not have to hire as many people. So, I mean, there's, depending on where you're sitting, there's different perspectives on it. Um, what are your thoughts on how, you know physical therapy practice owners should approach and can leverage this whole new category of technology?
Yeah, I think it's coming, and I do think there's a place. Garrett, you and I saw each other at PPS this year, right?
Yep.
Did you chuckle at all when you walked through the exhibit floor and you looked around? I swear they slapped AI on Coca-Cola cans. I mean, I think every single surface that was flat had AI on it, squeezed in somewhere. Like everyone was pushing this AI message. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was everywhere.
Everywhere. And then you know, normally, like you've been going to PPS for some years, I've been going for 25 years, and this was the first time in my long history of going to PPS that, normally we go there and the theme of the weekend is how to get more new patients, or how to do better hiring, or how to have succession planning, or how to maximize my billing, or how to fight reimbursement, right? All very industry specific tasks to be better accomplished, right? This year it was all about AI, affordability. It was like nothing I've ever seen before. Everything about affordability, everything about I can just hopefully have this bot do this work for me. It's kind of like weight loss. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm not a fan of taking a pill to drop 30, 40, 50 pounds. It's going to hurt me in my mind somewhere along the line, right? Exercise is still the key. You can't outrun the fork, right? So watch what you eat, right? So I think to practice owners who are listening right now, I do think it is valuable for me to share with you. There are three key principles to succeeding in private practice. Price, product, and support. So whatever you're looking to supplement your operating basis with, if we're not a staffing company or an outsourcing company, what we are is we're a remote management company. So we come in with a multi-layered approach. We put multiple people on the account, not just one. We don't staff you with just one person, but we literally come in. If we're going to take over the billing, then we need to do it at the best price. We need to get you the best product. We have to hit the metrics that you're deserving of, and we absolutely have to support you. I mean, no one's perfect. No one's walking on water. If somebody trips, stumbles, falls, skins their knees, own the responsibility, fix it, and make up for the damage. And that's why we have a money back guarantee of a 4% error rate. If we make any errors and anything in excess of a 4% error rate, we're going to credit you back on your future bill. So I don't think a lot of people are willing to stand behind their product like that. I know we are, and we're very proud of it. So I think the industry should demand things like that, Garrett. Really, I think it's high time for us to stop thinking that there's an easy way out and it's just some bot's going to do everything for ourselves. But I do think there is much greater value in hitching your wagon to business associate partnerships. Associates who are specialized in a certain area that can complement what you're trying to do. So maybe you go to work in the future and the only people on your payroll are DPTs, PTAs, and techs. That would be heaven, right? In my mind, that would be heaven if I only had that on my payroll and all this admin is being done at a fixed rate. To me, that's just heaven.
So you've mentioned, I mean, just now this heaven, this arrangement of being able to just have your service providers and not have as many administrative people or any, in that example, on staff. And you mentioned, having outsourced services and these things that you're doing, and kind of alluded to, and for people who are familiar with this might be a little too basic, but I would like to zoom out a little bit and talk to you about how you came to emphasize this, because I think it's really interesting to look at. I certainly have the perspective of if I see someone who has been successful, who I trust their approach and their process, how they do things, and if they start something new, new strategy or pivot or something like that, I'm intrigued to know why, because I think the thinking behind that would yield some good insight. And so, when we first met, 7-8 years ago, this wasn't necessarily the biggest focus. I mean, you had the Meg Academy that you alluded to, stuff like that. You weren't as heavy into the outsourced services or remote management, as you said there. So what pain point did you observe? What were you trying to solve? What motivated you to really double down in this area in the last several years?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. What's the biggest cost on your P&L running your company, Garrett?
Payroll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
payroll. The cost of labor is expected to go up 28% for healthcare over the next 3 to 5 years. Post-COVID, you're right. I've been a training company since 2006. I mean, I've been delivering and training and flying across the country. I've been in thousands of offices nationwide as a business coach, not a consultant. I've never wanted to fly in, give a bunch of bright ideas, leave you with a binder and go to the next city and you're just a figment of my imagination. I was never a fan of that. I was always a fan of being a business coach, much like I was a physical therapist. I like to do an eval. I like to write a plan of care. I like to Velcro myself next to my patient. And, no matter what happens, we are going to go through this together and we are going to reach those short and long-term goals together. That's my dedication to you. That's my commitment to you as my patient. And when I went into this space of practice, at first it was consulting, I found an intrinsic flaw in that. I was like, consulting is you do your best to shower the person with all these successful actions and all these bright ideas and give it to them in writing at the time and just give them a binder. But on to Chicago, on to LA, on to New York, on to Houston. And I've got a whole nother audience of 30 people in the room for the weekend that I'm going to consult and then move on, right? Well, I did that for a year when I realized that was intrinsically flawed. And I said, I need to do this like we treat our patients. I need to take Garrett, or I need to take Beth or Samantha or Jan, and she's in private practice. Each one of those 4 owners have uniquely different things going on. They work, live, eat, and breathe and are reimbursed in uniquely different markets. You need to cultivate a unique business strategic plan that is custom to what their challenges are, what their demographics are, and what their environment holds. And so after 10 years of flying 150 days a year in and out of these offices, I kind of learned a couple things. And so I figured out how to put it on a web-based platform and I built it. And then all of a sudden in the last 5 or 6 years, the younger generation and some of the owners, seeing the headache of managing more people, they started just calling me and saying, well, Brian, more people, more problems. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. I don't think of people like that. But it became a reality for the public. And so for those of you who are listening, Business 101 says find a need and fill it. Well, the need became crystal clear to me in 2019, 2020, 2021. The need was, we're coming out of PT schools, heavily talented, skilled, trained, and educated in delivering physical therapy. We're not coming out of PT school with our biller poster certificate or our collections degree or how to run, a front desk or how to, look, we live, eat, and breathe in an intrinsically flawed healthcare system. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? When an insurance company can quote you benefits and then go back on it because you can hang up the phone, call back, and you can get an entirely different quote, and yet you can't do anything about it. You got to write it off. So this is an intrinsically flawed system. And I said to myself, I can help you with that. I'm like, we can help with that. Like, we teach on this. Like, we can do this. And so over the years, we've been working really hard on getting to be the best at it. And what I needed is just more staff and more resources, and now I have it. So I hope that answers your question. It really came as a calling from the marketplace, from the owners, from the therapists themselves. They were calling on me to say, I don't even want to learn it. I really just want to have a partner who can do it and just report to me what the status of the union is, what the findings are, what the reports and metrics look like. And let's just have a once a month meeting. And if it's all good and I understand that, I don't need to know how to do the keystrokes. And so here we are, boom, we're doing this for hundreds of offices nationwide now.
That's awesome. I can totally relate to that in my journey as a business owner. I used to do sales calls. Shoot, I used to pack newbie devices. I mean, along the way, right? And I've seen that in order for our business to grow, like there was a time where I had this epiphany that as much as I loved being in the clinic, actually working with people, getting these hormone outcomes, helping them feel better, I derived so much of my, honestly, like sense of self-esteem and self-worth from that. And so, and then I realized that the more time I spent doing that, the more I was actually holding back the business and impeding, or by working with one person, I was impeding our ability to help tens of thousands or literally millions of people. And I just learned along the way, as the business grows, I have to be able to prioritize my time and be able to trust other people to do things. And there's this great saying in the EOS entrepreneurial operating system that we use called, delegate and elevate. That's kind of the theme. And so I think that theme is, one that you're describing is one that I really want to draw out here and emphasize, of being able to focus on our highest areas where we add the highest value and not be distracted and not diffuse our energy by focusing on things that we're not as good at or don't add as much value, and being able to hire people, whether it's full-time team members or outsourcing, being able to focus on that is one of the biggest keys to business. And so I think that theme really jumps out at me from hearing you speak, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. So I wanted to just take a moment to emphasize that. And then in terms of the things that are outsourced, I mean, you talked a lot about billing there. What can you just talk again? Because again, I'm interested in what you're doing, because I think you're focusing on the areas, as you said, that the market told you it needed most, and that you see add the most value to practices. And from your perspective, when you say that, it really resonates with me. So you mentioned billing. What are like the verticals or the roles that you're filling, and what are the outsourced services or remote management? What are the sort of the exact areas that you're providing those services?
Sure, I can definitely go over that. I think you touched on something that really just made me feel really connected. And it was like, if I were to ask, for those of you who are listening, I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, who are you? I mean, who are you? Where are you today? And where do you want to go, right? Who are you? Where are you? And where do you want to be? Because if we want to be a doctor, a medical doctor, it's really simple. You're going to cut people open, give them drugs, and send them for a test. I mean, that's it. MD 101 over. There's not a doctor on planet Earth who's not cutting people open, giving them drugs, or sending them for a test. I never wanted to be that. I didn't want to spend my life with that. I wanted to know who I was as a person. Like, who am I? I am a person who has a baseline of knowledge, a skill set in my hands, a utilization of effective equipment, such that if applied correctly in the right sequence, in the right order, over the right duration of time, I could have a lifelong impact on your function, on your independent function, on your health. And nothing brings me more pleasure and joy than being able to do that. And so then when you look at all these years later, I just wanted to be the best manual therapist I could be. Well, now here I am, 33 years in the profession. I want to be the best administrative provider, the best practice management coach, the best I can to help you alleviate yourself, like I did my patients, alleviate them from, what are we treating patients for? If it's tight, stretch it. If it's weak, strengthen it. If it hurts, make the boo-boo go away. So I want to be the best at that as a clinician. Well, now I want to be the best in helping you alleviate yourself from your nightmares, your stress, your headaches associated with delivering the physical therapy care that you're so passionate about. All of these other things are simply a distraction. We can do remote front desk. A remote front desk is the phones no longer ring in your office. We take all the calls. We do all the faxes. We do all the online submittals. We do all the cancellations. You still have a hostess with the mostest, a little tech who goes up and checks people in and takes over the counter. That's it. They don't have all the stress of patient registration, visit tracking logs, cancellation logs, all the scripts to follow up with. Yeah, it's all gone. It's all gone. Like literally, we teleport right into your EMR. We grab your phones. It's all super, super simple, super fast, super easy. And yet you still have that nice, greeting, that nice sincerity, that nice personal touch, a happy face at that front with everybody coming in who's a Swiss Army knife. They go in the back, they operate as a tech, and then they meet and greet, take over the counter, and that's it. Or you could go totally virtual. We have a wonderful relationship with Highbridge, and we put a virtual screen in with a kiosk and a tablet, and we can do everything. The only thing we can't do is put paper in the printer and take out the trash. We can see everything live streaming, check them in, handle it. So that is probably the number one thing that rings my phone. People, look, the state of rehab report from WebPT. What is the percentage of clinics that can keep somebody at that front desk for a year longer? I don't even think it's 50%. I don't even think the amount of turnover. And how long does it take to get somebody adequately trained and proficient at running the front desk? 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks? And then they leave in 6 months? The revolving door has got to stop. The beautiful thing with us is we're a fixed rate cost per month. You can increase your visits and your profit margin accelerates. The expense doesn't trail the profits or the growth. So I'm very happy with the remote front desk and the virtual front desk services. The biggest challenge, as you can possibly imagine, is insurance verification authorizations. You got to get those done in 24 to 48 hours, and you got to get them right. Portals don't give you the right information. The person on the phone doesn't give you the right information. You got to call, you got to check it twice. Which is why we just charge a transaction fee. Every VOB is X amount of dollars. Every verification of benefits, every authorization, X amount of dollars. It goes up and down $1 or $2 here and there, depending on where you are in the country, but it's all well within the same bandwidth. And then, of course, billing is awesome. We bill, we post, we collect. We've been doing that since 2006. Hands down, we're super excited about that. And then the last is credentialing. Credentialing is great. You Google physical therapy credentialing. We should be number one on Google's list because we've been doing that forever. And my team I put them up against anybody. They're just wonderful staff. But my point is not to talk about myself in that way or pat ourselves in the back, but to say the pressure valve for so many owners today to enjoy being a practice owner and reap the reward of their investment is alleviating the burden of the accelerated expense, the stress, challenges, and proficiency of doing the admin side of the business. They're not kept up at night worried about what they're going to do in the treatment room the next day. They're kept up at night worried about who didn't do something right and who didn't follow up with this patient, who didn't cancel this appointment, who didn't reschedule this person, who didn't call on these benefits or those benefits or post this payment or that payment. If you could just make that go away and put it in the hands of a manager, that's why I say we're not a staffing company or an outsourcing company, because anybody can staff you a person in a chair. I don't do that. I give you a primary, a secondary, and a manager. I staff it with a team. So I hope that isn't too long-winded, but for people who are trying to draw the distinction between what we do and what others do, I hope that adds some degree of clarification. I know my biggest stress in running my practice was never on the clinical delivery. It was always on the administrative support.
Thank you so much for listening to the Undercurrent podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how NeuFit and the Newbie can impact your life, please visit our website at www.new.fit, that's neu.fit, so you can learn more about how it might integrate into your professional practice, how you can use it as a patient, and you can also connect with our team there.
And so if anyone is listening to this conversation and thinking, hey, I would like to offload some of those, hey, I would like some support here, I'll do the mention for you, Brian. megbusiness.com, MEG business.com is Brian's website. And there's a chance actually on there to book a discovery call and get a chance to talk to Brian. I think that's one cool thing that you do, even still have introductory calls, and you give very freely coaching knowledge and advice, and you definitely add value first. You're living the go-giver example. I know that's a book I first learned about from you, and it's cool. You're leading by example in that way. So I would highly encourage anyone, if this is resonating with you at all, check out that website and book a call there. I would also like to touch on, Brian, a topic. In our first episode we did together, we talked about a little bit about finance and culture and operations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have another question. I'll be curious to see where this goes. So your podcast is Top Seekers of the Top 10%. You talk a lot about helping your practice owners that you coach get into that top 10%. So if you have the top 10% in financial performance, the top 10% operationally, and the top 10% in terms of what you would call healthy culture, which of course can mean different things to different people, but what you would call it, how much overlap is there in the top 10% of all three of those categories? Is it, hey, if you're top 10% in one of these, it's because you're doing it well across the board in all of them? Or is there a trade-off? I mean, are people have a top 10%? Are they, top 10% culturally, but they're not as good financially because their people are spending more time playing ping pong and having free barbecue, or, stuff like that. How would you describe the relationship between high performance in those areas of a business?
Right. That's a really great question. And I think it's kind of what you alluded to there a little earlier when you said, I give of myself for coaching. When people are either they're doing services or they're in Mega Academy, it doesn't matter. I give unlimited, to my Mega Academy people, and once a month to my service people, 15 to 20 minute coaching calls at their behest whenever they want to meet with me, and they send over 3 bullet points and we dive into it. So why do I use that as an example? Because I have to live what I preach, right? And so what I'm going to share with you here to answer that question is your company culture and your clinic success is a reflection of you. It's a reflection of you. It's not because of any external anything. It's really purely because of you, because you're at cause over everything that's happening in that practice and in your professional and personal life. Nobody else is at cause over that but you. When you find yourself at the effect of others, then the practice will behave and operate and produce in that manner. So let me give a specific. If I want to have a company culture of exchange and abundance, then I have to have the beingness of a person who enjoys exchanging in abundance with my staff. And it can't just be monetary. It has to be with time, compassion, and attention. So it's acknowledgement and validation. I validate my staff based on what they've done well, based on how they've performed, but I acknowledge them for who they are, right? And if you're known as that person who lives your life like that with your staff and with your public, people quickly realize that your mission isn't about getting more green paper with dead presidents on it. So it's really not. It's really about how can I exchange in abundance with more and more and more people, because that's what fills up my tank of happiness and satisfaction. People only want to do business with those that they know, like, and trust. I meet way too many owners that have a barrier up and they're only presenting their owner self to their public or to their staff. And I see this in corporate America when I work with bigger and bigger companies. There's no connection between them. Everyone's clocking in, clocking out, and they're exchanging time for money. If you're going to have a business like that, clock in, clock out, and exchange time for money, then welcome to corporate America. But if you're going to be what the essence of a physical therapist is, then you're going to come to work every day, no matter who you meet up with. You're going to be in for the time you're in their presence, for the time you're engaging that person. And I recommend this in your entire life. You should be more interested than interesting. On podcasts like this, I talk all about what I do and who I am. It's all about interesting. When this camera shuts off and I'm not here and I'm talking to people and I'm engaging people, I'm like, well, tell me about your practice. What's the state of the union today? Why did you go into private practice? What's your ideal scene? And then what do you think is your biggest barriers, challenges, and problems to reaching that? I mean, literally, that's the first 15 minutes of my call. And then I say, well, you reached out to me for a reason. What are you hoping I'm going to be able to do for you? And they're so taken back because they're so ready for me to get in there on the 20th minute of the call and say, well, here's what we can do. I can do this at this price, and we can do that, and I can perform this and this and that. I don't do that at all. I'm like, now that I know where you are, now that I know where you want to be, now that I know what you perceive as your biggest problems, challenges, and barriers, well, great. Why don't you share with me what you're hoping I can do? What Harry Potter wand can I pull out of my satchel and help you with? Well, Brian, if you could just help. I had a call. Today is a Friday. I had a call on Wednesday. I did a coaching call with somebody who I've been working with for over 7 years. And to this day, he's unlimited coaching. Brian, I've got these 4 offices. I'm averaging 18 evals a week. 2026, I want to average 30 evals a week. I want to hear your advice on how you can help me. And I'm ready to whip up a whole new marketing strategy. I said, we got 20 minutes. I mean, we're going to do this in 20. He wants a whole new. I said, but okay, let me give you the broad strokes. Let me give you the outline of what you need to do. And I said, but before I do, tell me what you think you need to do. And he's immediately starts talking about going and visiting doctors. And he's talking, he said something about doctors, and then he said events, and then he said social media. And so, I always like to listen first. I like to lead with questions, because you can't manage over disagreement. So I like to ask the question so I know where they're stuck or not stuck. So he says this, right? Doctors, social media, events. So then I say, well, where's the greatest percentage of your patients coming from? Your evals coming from? Oh, it's return business. He said it's repeat business. Repeat. I said, well, let me just clarify a definition. My definition is return business. People who've been here before, friends, family members, coworkers, referral sources connected to a patient who's been here before. So because that patient had a superlative experience, you now got these 4 people coming in because of that, right? He's like, oh yeah, by far. I said, is it above 60%? He's like, yeah, it's probably about 60, 70%. I said, because a high quality practice gets 6 out of 10 of their evals from return business. So if the owner's telling me, oh yeah, I don't get anywhere near that number, I'm like, oh, I'm worried about the practice. What are your therapists doing? Who are they hurting, right? So, but if you're getting 6 out of 10 of your evals, so I said to him, long story short, I said, double down there. Like that's your low hanging fruit. These are people who already know, like, and use you. Double down there. Make a greater attempt at enhancing the experience and relationship and longevity of the patients who are currently winning with you, right? And then secondly, where's your second? He said social media. I said, great. So ask the people who are winning why they're winning, get them on film and put it on social media. Stop you being that. So many owners are like, yeah, blah, 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 blah on social media, all the good things they do. Get your patients to be your spokesperson for you. Get them to be on there and saying all the good things of why they picked you over somebody else. So anyways, he was really jazzed because like, that's so easy. Those are such easy things. I'm like, you know what? You hunt with that dog till that dog don't hunt. Too many owners keep wanting to get all creative in their marketing strategy. Go with what's working really well, what supports your mission, your purpose, what you're known for. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not around, right? So build that, lean into that. That's my advice there. So yes, that is what we started with, and now we can complement with services and these kinds of high level executive strategies.
And so what I'm hearing is that there's a few elements of this. Having good culture and good operations. And the culture, as you said, it starts at the top. It starts with who the practice owner is and how they show up and how they treat people and how they model that. And then that trickles down to how their clinicians treat their patients, and operationally the quality of care and things that are going on. And that, of course, fuels the bottom line. And operationally having processes around capturing testimonials and stuff like that too. And that then fuels the financial performance of the business. And it's all related there. But I really like what you said about how, the first place you went is it starts with who we are as leaders and how we show up and how that's the first domino. So I really like that. And it's, we're just slightly more sophisticated chimpanzees. And there's all these studies of how monkeys look to the leader, right? They look to the alpha and mimic that person. Their mirror neurons, there's really good neuroscience around this. So I'm glad that you started there.
If you and I think about it, really, I read about 55 books a year, 45 to 55 books a year, mostly Audible because I don't have time to sit and actually flip the pages. So I'll say this is key. I think this is so key. You can read as many books as you want, and you're going to close and you're going to be educated. You're going to have a thought-provoking idea. You're going to be like, oh, I didn't know that. Look at what I know. It means nothing by comparison to what you've learned and your ability to apply it in a role play situation where you can actually perform it. You can actually pull it off, right? True skill is through the application of what you understand needs to be done. You understand it, you duplicate it, you understand and duplicate it so well that you have no problem going out there in the whole wide world and replicating it. That is the only thing that matters, Garrett. That is the only thing that matters. It's not how many books you read. It's how has it changed your behavior, your function, your application of what you're trying to do. So yes, I can go over all the logistics of what you should pay yourself and how you should write a financial plan and how you should do a marketing strat plan and how you should do the logistics. Knowing this is one thing. Doing this, performing at a high level of achievement, of accomplishment, of skill is the only thing that matters.
Yes. And ultimately, as you said earlier, beingness is even above that. And there's, wonderful quotes from influential thought leaders that, to the effect of, we don't get what we do, we don't get what we work for. We get, as outcomes in the world, we get who we are. And ultimately,
Yes.
The outcomes are a reflection of who we are, which of course is what we do, right? Influences our thoughts and our behaviors. And that's what actually, where the rubber meets the road. That's what happens there. So
it is in that order, isn't it? It's be, do, have. It's literally be, do, have. You have to be in the right frame of mind of what you need. And then you need to go do it. And then you'll have the product you're looking for.
Yeah. Yes. So before we wrap up here, is there anything on the topics we've covered today, Brian, that you feel like you need to either add or anything more to say on any of these?
Oftentimes I do these interviews quite a bit, and a lot of times I'm asked the question, if I could go back in time, what would I do different? Or if I could reflect back on my biggest failures or my biggest stumbles, how would I have avoided that? Or what? And I look back at that, and in many ways, it's kind of like a two sides of a coin. On the one hand, I would never want to not have experienced those failures and those drop balls and those misses. I've learned way more from my mistakes than I ever have from my successes, number one. So on the one side of the coin, I would never want to lose that valuable lesson learned, right? On the other side of the coin, I'm like, well, you could have learned a little quicker. Maybe I could have done things a little bit. So I think if I were to give anybody any advice in that way, I would say, similar to what I was telling you when we were just catching up, my wife and I, we go off on our anniversary once a year and we reflect back on the year we were in, and we look forward to the year we want to go in, and we say to ourselves, were we on point? Were we on purpose? Did we get distracted? Did we go off course? What can we do better for the upcoming year? What's our ideal scene for this coming year in terms of health and finances and family and friends and, just connectivity or whatever that may be. And I think, Garrett, what I would like to leave everybody with is the know best attitude will never get you to where you want to go. The need to be right attitude is not worth it. You don't have to agree with what's said, but you can acknowledge what's being said. You can acknowledge what one's saying to you or doing, but you don't have to necessarily agree with it. You don't have to rub their nose in it, right? So I think if you look at it from that perspective, always knowing that you don't have this need to be right, and always knowing that you're capable of reflecting back on who you are, because you can wake up today and be a better person today than yesterday. I think those critical things internally make us who we are externally. So if you're asking me that question, if I could go back through time, I think I would have de-emphasized a lot more of what I felt the importance was of what I needed to do. And I would have re-emphasized a lot more in my early years. I started in business at 28 years old, more of an investment in who I need to be. And now here I am at 57. I'm very comfortable with who I am and who I need to be and how I am trying to be the best I can for those around me. But in my younger years, boy, it was run faster, climb harder, push more. And my advice to all of you out there, that is not the winning strategy. It really isn't. So that's the message I'd love to send.
I love that. Well, that perhaps answers my final question, which I've started asking more regularly since the time you were last on the podcast, which is, and perhaps you just said it, perhaps there's something else or different way to phrase it, but if you could shout one message from a mountaintop for everyone to hear, or put one message on a billboard for everyone to see, what would that message be?
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. That's an awesome question. I think that message would be, similar to what I just said, to be honest with you, I go right to this idea that it's all about being more interested in others and being interested in exchanging in abundance and not asking for more in return, right? I think marketing is giving, not getting. It's really going out there and what can you do? What can you give back to those out there? And then they'll recognize the goodness that you are as a person and as a professional, and they'll reciprocate in kind. So I think if I could shout from the mountaintops, it really is about living your life starting, like I say on my podcast, and I really believe it, living your life. I shout from the mountaintops, live your life starting every day, reflecting on 5 things you're grateful for, and always expecting to do well each and every day. And nothing else. I think it's just a mindset. I really do. I really think it's more of that. It's not a whole lot of hocus pocus, and it doesn't have to be this, Nobel Peace Prize, quote per se. But it really is just grounding yourself every morning, starting every day with your core values, knowing the 5 things you're grateful for, and knowing that you can expect to do well each and every day. And just don't go the effect of the external environment. It's a little bit of a dangerous world out there, and I don't want to give into it.
That's beautifully said. And there's probably a lot of people who could say similar inspirational messages, and then when they go out and live their day, they're kind of living the opposite of that. And you, however, Brian, I know, having gotten to know you over the last 7 or 8 years, I know that you are not just saying this, but you're living it. You're leading by example. So I really appreciate you not only for sharing the message in your words, but for sharing the message in how you live your life and how you treat people and the way you add value to others. So I appreciate you very much. And I'm sure the listeners got as much out of this as I did. And I look forward to continuing our collaboration into the future.
No, me too, Garrett. Thank you once again. I so appreciate your time. You guys make a big difference in the clinical delivery systems of so many clinics all around the country. So I'm very grateful for the day we met. I remember that restaurant having that breakfast together. That was a wonderful time. And I was like, man, this thing is going to be big. And here we are. And it definitely is.
That's right. That's right. I remember that very fondly as well. So thanks again for being here, Brian. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of the Undercurrent podcast. We'll see you next time.